Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley anticipates the report's release on the 14th with a public hearing where Horowitz can defend the findings 4 days later. The original mandate focused on the Clinton email investigation, but the title of the congressional hearing suggests the scope may be broader. The report puts Director Comey's leadership style under the microscope, with the Inspector General exploring whether Comey went beyond his authorities in July 2016 at this event when he publicly discussed the Clinton email investigation and recommended against criminal charges, a responsibility that fell to his boss at the time, Attorney General Loretta Lynch. When Fox News caught up with Lynch on Capitol Hill recently, she refused to answer questions about the Comey allegations. In the draft report, the Inspector General reportedly rebukes Lynch as well for her handling of the federal criminal probe. Comey testified to Congress that Lynch advised him to call the criminal investigation a matter. Comey said the language concerned him for a number of reasons, but primarily because it mirrored the language used by the Clinton campaign. A former Justice Department official told Fox News that cooperating witnesses can review the Inspector General's findings before they're released to the public and argue against those conclusions, and that likely explains the delays we've seen in the last few weeks, Sandra.
And Catherine, what about this leak investigation?
Well, the FBI has arrested James A. Wolfe, a former Senate staffer for the Senate Intelligence Committee, who was in charge of securing highly classified information to include top-secret documents. Wolfe is now accused of making false statements in December to the FBI, a violation of 18 U.S.C. 1001, as part of a leak investigation as the Senate committee looked into Russian interference in the 2016 election. Wolfe is accused of lying about his repeated contacts with 3 reporters, contacts that include the use of encrypted messaging. One of the reporters you see here is Allie Watkins with the New York Times. This comes nearly a year after the Attorney General Jeff Sessions said the administration would aggressively pursue leak investigations.
Who would illegally use their access to our most sensitive information to endanger our national security are, in fact, being investigated and will be prosecuted.
This is a very fast-moving story. The release came from the Justice Department late last night, and we expect Wolfe will make his first court appearance in federal court later this morning. Sandra.
Catherine, thank you.
You know what Donald Trump is going to wind up with for his birthday next Thursday?
What?
The Inspector General of the Department of Justice is going to come out with his long-awaited report on what the FBI and the Department of Justice did behind the scenes. Oh, that's an interesting shot. What they did behind the scenes regarding the Hillary Rodham Clinton email scandal. It sounds like Mr. Comey is going to get into big trouble, as will Andrew McCabe, who already got fired, and also the Attorney General, formerly of the United States, Lynch.
Pretty amazing. We now have the date of this release, June 14th. So that's next Thursday. And as you said, Steve, of all days, it happens to be Donald Trump's birthday. So as you said, we're going to get a lot of information out of this report, the handling of the Clinton email investigation. But as it relates to James Comey and Christian Saucier, of course, the ex-Navy sailor who was pardoned by Trump, he had some comments about James Comey last night with Martha McCallum, and he says a lot of pretty tough things about him. At one point, calls him a domestic enemy. Listen to this.
This is me fighting for the average American citizen. We shouldn't be subjected to a separate set of laws than Hillary Clinton or James Comey, who admitted to leaking classified information to the press to try to benefit himself. Or it's the same thing with Andrew McCabe. You know, these people aren't above the law, but apparently they are. When I was in the military, I fought enemies foreign, and now I fight enemies domestic, and that's really what I believe, Comey is. He's a domestic enemy.
I mean, and the last thing I want to go through is this whole private server, the July press conference. We've been through it back and forth. The person that put everybody in the most impossible situation is Hillary Clinton's decision on the private server and John Podesta's vulnerable email. If they had both acted responsible and that mirrored their positions, they wouldn't have had to have these crazy actions. The other thing we're going to see is the reported expanded role of Peter Strzok in both things. And we're going to possibly see more text messages that will show other people that didn't vote for Donald Trump, the bias that was built into the system, and there was really there's only one person that would have beat the drum this hard for this long to force the truth out, and it's the president. He's been relentless in his pursuit to find out what's going on.
So it's either going to be a great birthday, Steve, or maybe not so great one.
And the reason Mr. Saucier is such a good spokesman regarding the legal double standard is because he got in trouble. Remember, a couple of cell phone pictures were taken when when he was 22 years old on board a sub. He was prosecuted, served time in jail, and he says there's a legal double standard, and that is why he is personally suing the federal government, and in particular, he wants to put Barack Obama in the witness chair along with Hillary Clinton and James Comey and say, how come they can break the law and they don't get prosecuted, and I took a cell phone picture and I go to jail?
James Comey is a man who has prided himself on his reputation, his ethics, his good standing, but this report would seem, the snippets we've heard of it would seem to paint the former FBI director in a different light.
Well, John, well, I've not seen the report. I'm looking anxiously forward to reviewing it. It's about 500 pages, so it'll be, I'm sure, in copious detail. Michael Horowitz did a great job in his shorter report on Andrew McCabe, pointing out how he lied to the FBI investigators 3 times under oath and once not under oath. But, John, I've been saying for a long time that the investigation concerning Hillary Clinton's email scandal was not a robust investigation. It was never designed to uncover the truth and lead to a prosecution. It was more designed to cover up the truth and exonerate, and that's exactly what James Comey did. So I'm not going to be surprised by just about anything the Inspector General reports on that. I'm really looking forward to seeing the report.
So the firing of James Comey, which caused such an outburst early in this administration, you would seem to support the president's decision.
Well, Rod Rosenstein laid out the case of how James Comey violated all kinds of Department of Justice guidelines in terms of how the FBI should really act when it comes to investigation. So, if anybody wants to get prepared for the Inspector General report, go onto our webpage. You can take a look at our interim report on the Clinton email scandal and the FBI's investigation of it. We prepared that and issued it in February 2018. It really lays out the basic guideline, the basic timeline of all these events. It's not quite up to date. We'll be making it up to date once we see the Inspector General's report, and we finally start getting more of the evidence from the FBI and Department of Justice, which is still very slow in coming.
The White House, obviously no fans of James Comey. Hogan Gidley, one of the president's spokesmen, had this to say this morning on Fox and Friends. Listen.
James Comey is disgraced. He's a liar and a leaker. He's disgruntled. Everyone knows who James Comey is at this point. The book tour he went on was disgraceful. People understand at this point what he is and who he is and what he's all about.
Is this changing the official Washington image of the former FBI director, Senator?
Well, I kind of agree that the book tour was not a real bright moment for James Comey, not by a long shot. And, let's face it, Andrew McCabe was Martyr McCabe until the Inspector General's report really showed that he pretty conclusively lied to the FBI investigator. And let's face it, who should know better that they shouldn't lie to the FBI investigators than the deputy director and then finally the acting director of the FBI? So listen, I came under a great deal of criticism when I just talked about possible corruption at the highest levels of the FBI. I think the McCabe report definitely proved there was definite corruption at the highest levels. We'll see how extensive it is. My whole point of my investigation, we've been doing this for 3 years now, is to make the public aware, full disclosure, so that the FBI and the Department of Justice can regain their integrity, the credibility which it needs to serve the American public.
Piro, host of Justice with Judge Janine, and of course author of Liars, Leakers, and Liberals, the case against the anti-Trump conspiracy, and the perfect person to get reaction. I think off the top here, big news, the IG report is coming out next week, next Thursday. You got Andy McCabe asking for immunity. You've got this report coming on the president's birthday. All this is going on. Of course, he's heading to the G7 summit, then North Korea. Help analyze all of this for us.
Well, the good news is that the report is coming out on the president's birthday. It'll be a birthday present because we already know what's going to be in that report. Not that we've seen it, but the report is to investigate the actions of the DOJ and the FBI on the handling of the Clinton email case. We already know from Rod Rosenstein himself that everything that was done by Comey, by stepping out of his own lane, making like he's the attorney general, and then basically saying, she was reckless. And she said, things that should never have been said by anyone in any role as FBI or AG. Now, the significant thing right now is that McCabe, in asking for immunity, sends a huge signal. Number one, he's asking for immunity because he is under a criminal investigation right now, so he doesn't want to appear before Senate
Can I stop you
intel.
1 second?
Yeah.
Because, well, you know, the Senate's not going to jail you. The Senate committee's not going to jail you. What's he asking for immunity for? Just so he's going in front of this committee. But his problem is here. Right?
Yeah.
His problem is here. So what does one committee testimony have to do with his criminal problem?
Everything.
Then how can a committee give you immunity?
They give you use immunity, not transactional immunity. And I don't want to get into the weeds here, but it would. And he's got a very good lawyer. It would be at this point.
You think they'll give it to him though?
Oh, I don't know.
No.
I doubt it. But here's the issue. If he wants immunity, it's to protect himself in the criminal investigation. Nothing I say here I want to be used against me. But the other issue is that he needs immunity from what? Exactly. What will he testify to? Sure. He's deputy director of the FBI. Is he going after the head of the FBI, or is he going to talk about Obama?
Sure. All right. Because you've got this new book coming out, Janine, regarding. Hold on. Let's go to this. Because you've got this book coming out about leakers.
Yeah.
How about the jaw-dropping news that somebody from essentially the deep state, a guy who has been the director of security for the Senate Intel Committee, he has been charged, his name is James Wolfe, been there for 29 years, with lying to the FBI about leaking to reporters damaging information about the Trump administration.
Well, and that's what we've seen across the board. That's what we've seen across the board here. And, you know, I would have thought by this point we'd hear from more people being prosecuted. And by the way, what is everybody in Washington doing? He's got a girlfriend that you know, he's leaking to.
Welcome to DC, Judge.
And Page. I mean, why don't they just do their job? We might not be in the bottom of a barrel if they did their job.
But while they have relationships going, it's jeopardizing national security. Yes. And now it's got you have a reporter, you have a guy who's had that job for 30 years leaking to a BuzzFeed reporter who's now a New York Times reporter. Right. And one theme is it damages the president. That's the theme.
That is the theme. That's the intent. You get the text messages from Strzok and Page. There was a deep state agenda to make sure that President Trump was teed up for a collusion.
Judge Janine, stand by. Before the president.
Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.